Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Future Armenian discussion. Today's discussion is about the opinion, the ideas from the Australian community on the economic development of Armenia. So first, I'll start off with introducing the participants of today's discussion. Then we'll watch a short video about the initiative, after which we'll proceed to the discussion. My name is Movses Makaryan. I'm the representative of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of the Republic of Armenia in Australia. I'm also a board member of the Armenian Business Development Association, and I will be the moderator for the next hour. Today with us, we have Garry Simonian, who is a successful businessman. He's a restaurateur with Platinum Restaurant Group. He's a property developer, also Platinum Property Advisors, and he is a finance operator, Lightning Fast Finance. He is also a public officer of the Armenian Business Development Association. We have Garry Simonian with us today. He's the chairman at Weston Aluminium Pty Ltd. He's also the honorary chairman at the Armenian National Committee of Australia. We have Jon Dee with us. He's the RE100 Australia coordinator. He's also founder of Rogate Armenia. He's also a board member of the Armenian Business Development Association, and in general, a good friend of Armenia and Armenian people. We have Stepan Kerkyasharian with us, who is the former president of Anti-Discrimination Board, commissioner of Community Relations of New South Wales. He's an expert in public administration and policy analyst. So he's also a board member of the Armenian Business Development Association. This is very open discussion. Feel free anytime if you want to add something to what the other panelist was saying, or if you want to clarify just in between, say whatever your thoughts and opinion is, feel free to do so. Now I would ask each of the participants, the panelists, to take a few minutes to share their thoughts on what they think about the Armenian economy, what direction it should go to in general, what their opinion is, what they think can be done. And is there anyone who wants to start first? Maybe go, Jon, if you want to start first, if that's okay for you. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks for that. Good morning, everybody in Armenia, and afternoon, evening elsewhere. My background with Armenia is when I started Rogate Armenia back in at the time of the earthquake in 1988, and managed to get people like Pink Floyd, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Bon Jovi, Black Sabbath, and other bands to help raise funds. And I'm glad to say, in collaboration with Ara Tadavosian from MediaMax and the Fund for Armenia Relief, we built a music school in Gyumri, which is operational today and teaching about 220 kids a year. So it's been very interesting for me, having first arrived at the beginning of 1989 in Armenia. It was still Soviet Armenia, obviously a very, very different country to what it is today. The impact that the Soviet Union had on Armenia on innovation was huge. It was, very negative as a society with regards to no free markets. People didn't have the ability to do what they wanted to do. And it's been very interesting for me coming back every kind of 5 years to Armenia to see how much the country has changed. But what's exciting, I think, about what does a future Armenia look like? I think there is so much potential with Armenians. If you look at the diaspora around the world, there are amazing Armenian business people. You're going to hear from some of them today here in Australia. But the one thing I have always felt very strongly is that Armenians overseas do not do enough to support Armenians back in their homeland. And, I have a very strong affection for Armenia. And we have to find a way, as we've seen with the core aims of the Future Armenian Initiative, we've got to find a better way of doing things. If you look at a country like Israel, who suffered a similar genocide, of course, had similar kind of issues facing them, they've managed to create a very successful economy that's very resilient, and we need to do the same in Armenia. And one thing that I am particularly interested in, and this is the thing I want to put out there as an idea, I work with some of the world's biggest companies on renewable energy. And here in Australia, I run the RE100 initiative on behalf of the Climate Group and CDP. RE100 is basically more than 300 of the world's biggest companies, all going 100% renewable by a set date. And already dozens of really big companies, we're talking people like Apple, Unilever, Microsoft, General Motors, IKEA, Mars, Facebook, Google, and about 300 other companies. If those companies can all go 100% renewable, the idea I want to put out there for the future Armenia is for Armenia 100, is to get Armenia to electrify everything, get away from gas. And so from an environmental standpoint, have a zero emission, a net zero society. But I think we need renewables in Armenia because, to me, it's a defense issue. We've seen what's happened with the recent war. Energy security for Armenia is absolutely critical. The only way to get there, I believe, to have really secure energy for Armenia is to go 100% renewable with electricity, get rid of Armenia's reliance on gas. And if you look at the cost of solar, if you look at the cost of wind, the cost of battery storage, if you look at technology that's been around for 100 years, like pumped hydro storage, Armenia has the ability to go 100% renewable with its electricity use. And that's an idea that Garry Simonian and I have been talking about, is how do we do that? We are doing research at the moment on that whole issue, looking at Armenia. There's a lot of money available around the world to invest in places like Armenia for renewables. If you look at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, they're working with the European Union and the Green Climate Fund. There's funds available from there to help Armenian businesses. And I think what we've got to look at is how can we work in partnership with international entities like that to make sure Armenian businesses get the benefit of cheap energy, that we get the benefit of renewable energy, and that we have energy security. So if you decentralize the grid, so you're getting energy made all around the country with solar and wind and geothermal, hydropower, there's huge opportunity, I think, for the Armenian economy.
Thank you, Jon. We'll get back to this. It's a very important and an interesting things that you are saying, and especially knowing the experience that you have in the field, it will be a great thing if we can elaborate on this later in the discussion. Now I'll ask the next panelist who would like to go next.
I'm happy to go next. Yeah. Look, thank you, Movses, and good morning to Armenia, and good evening and afternoon to the rest of the world if there is any people are watching us. As I always said, we all have useful fatigue life in our life that we live in, and we try to use whatever we can, at this stage to help Armenia in the war, in the current economic situation that we are in, both with the brutal war and the pandemic that we're going through. So we're all trying our best, and to be honest, we are the last generation that we will have a power or enough energy to be able to save Armenia, because believe me, I don't think our kids will be able to do what we're doing, because they'll be too busy to pay their interest rate on their houses here and finding jobs. So I think we're the only one that will be able to do whatever we can do for Armenia. Otherwise, we will lose Armenia. Simply. As you know, guys, that Movses, that I've been involved in a lot of housing in Armenia and a lot of startups there. I think the way forward for Armenia is just that, it's a reset now. We have to start thinking how to reset the economies and reset. We have to start reforming from our banking sector, industrial relation, tax reform, because once you stabilize your economy, the next more important thing is reforming the economy. That's where you can recover from what we're going through. So reforming, it's the key to be successful, to get Armenia to the next level. And to reform that, we need industries, investors, communities to work together and start a platform, that's what I would say the future Armenia, that's what I was very interested in. The platform that they're going to set up to rebuild, retool, reskills, specialize in tech, to get our young people like you, Movses, to not leave Armenia and being able to find job and be able to have a good life there. So the most important things for me is immigrations. That's going to be the key success and the vital point for Armenia. With immigration, of course, we need to provide affordable housing, social housing, and just elaborate what Jon was saying earlier. I know that will need money. That will be part of the fiscal policy that any government that needs to do. I know we've got the Reserve Bank of Armenia is trying to do with the monetary policy, but with 12% interest, not many people can buy anything. So we need to get the fiscal policy, that's government's duty to help young Armenians to be able to buy a house and to get investors, private equity, super funds, all to put together to start investing in that. And the only way to attract private equities and investors and super funds these days, we have to show them that we're going to do something different. And the different is renewable and make it an environmentally friendly houses. So we will be able to come, because there are so much money from the IMF, from even the Australian government is investing heavily in renewables. So if we can make houses that can tick the boxes of environmental, we will get a lot of funding out of the government. And in Sydney, we're doing the same thing. We're doing a project not far, and we're trying to use, with our, use sustainable, ethical, renewable products to build things. So housing, immigration, it's one of the most important things. And as we know, the technology is a heavy thing that we've done. The technology has, the pandemic has turbocharged the technology. And I think we're doing very fine in technology in Armenia. But I think the main things that we need to focus on is immigration and improve the fiscal policy. If the government can improve on that, to be able to give the young people some houses and things that they can be living in. So reforming the industrial relation, the red tape, reducing taxes, that's another important issue. If the future Armenia can work with, the communities, investors, and help the government to assist the government to be able to build the platform that we need to stand on, and we build on top of that. So that's one of the things that I wanted to elaborate on that with Jon, as far as the environmental. And so look, we need to do it. If you're going to do something, we got to do it right now, or we would never be able to do it again. So we got a huge job on us to be able to take, to work together to be able to come out of these, both the pandemic and the brutal war that we went through. So that's my points.
Thank you, Jon. I know all the work that you've done for Armenia, just leaving aside all the charity and all that philanthropical stuff that you did. Businesses also, you've done a development of business, building house units. So over here, also investment in startup and stuff. It's a great thing. And later
that's what I'm talking about, the reforming red tapes. I went through hell. That's one of the things,
That's exactly what I wanted to say. So later on in the discussion, we can discuss more on this. Also, I would like you to share that how optimistic you are about Armenia, and that you still have plans on Armenia, so people also can get inspired from all around the world that there are projects that are happening, have been happening, and will be happening. So we'll get back on that later in the discussion. So next, we would like to go Baron Kerkyasharian, please go ahead.
Yes. Well, when the way I would approach this is, it's like you've just been given a parcel of land and you've been asked to do something with it. So I will just look at the backdrop of it. I will look at what we have now, and there have to be some significant changes right from the beginning in the psychology of the way in which the government of Armenia looks at the diaspora and sees the diaspora. The trend so far, since independence for that matter, has been more introvert, and there's been virtually very little interaction with the diaspora. Initially, it's been relatively successful in terms of sending cultural groups to overseas to reinforce the cultural life or in the communities, etc., which has all been in the past very good. And the Tabidun project for children to visit Armenia, etc., they've all been very good. However, if we are going to develop Armenia, and if the diaspora is going to be effective in that, the government of Armenia, first and foremost, must start looking at itself not as the government of a small country, but it must start looking at itself as a colonial power. It must not look at the diaspora as communities which are dispersed all over the world, but it must look at the diaspora and communities as potential colonial centers, which can become part of the organic functioning of the government of Armenia and having a very positive impact on its future. At the moment, there are some issues about the security of the borders of Armenia in terms of maybe not so much militarily, but in terms of where exactly they are, because that has an impact on the economic life of the country, so that we know exactly where the mines are, we know exactly where the plantations can be, etc., etc. But in terms of interaction with the diaspora, I think the government of Armenia must develop a very detailed strategic approach. And I think this initiative by Mr. Vardanyan and his group of people represents a very good, contact point with which that kind of interaction can develop. That interaction should be in terms of cultural interaction. It should be in terms of political interaction. In other words, get political support, and also economic. In terms of cultural interaction, it's very important that Armenia supports the cultural life of the diaspora, because without proper Armenian cultural life, there will be no future Armenian generations. They will just disperse. So that lifeline, that bloodline can only come from Armenia, and that should be done. That should be one of the priorities of the Armenian government in terms of developing a holistic colonial power. So cultural life is very important, and it must be strategic, it must be planned, and it must be effective. In terms of political support, the diaspora needs to be organized and organized in such a way that its political potential can be utilized in a coordinated way to support the legitimate and correct political objectives of Armenia. During the recent war, there was virtually no attempt whatsoever by the government to utilize the political power and political potential of the diaspora. And then, of course, if you have those two, then you naturally lead into the third area, which is the economic development. And that's where there is enormous potential in the diaspora. The diaspora has the willingness to support. That was quite clear when something like $200 million was raised within virtually 1 month to support Armenia. The willingness is there, but it has to be responded to in a positive way by the government of Armenia. And I'm not being party political here. It doesn't matter who is in power. My comments relate both to the past and the present government. Unless we have a well-developed strategy of interaction and connectivity between the government of Armenia and the diaspora in the fields of culture, economy, and politics, I think any attempts that happen will be on a personal basis. It will be a personal initiative, and it will be a hit and miss.
Thank you very much, Baron Kerkyasharian. Before we proceed and somebody else anything, just for the audience, I would like to make this clear that in the whole Armenian world, we have just a few individuals that have done as much as Baron Kerkyasharian has done. He was very involved with politics, and he has done a lot for Armenia also. And just the fact that he is joining this initiative. He has the opinion that he just said about the initiative is a big step, I guess, for all the Armenians around the world to join and just be together. And if we have people like him joining and the rest of the board here, I guess this is something great, and hopefully we can all unite and do this thing all together. Anybody, Baron Soghomonian, I just saw your hand that's raised up. If you want to proceed with the discussion, please go ahead.
Sure. Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, wherever we are. I agree with all the discussions so far with my panelist friends and colleagues. I want to look at it from a sort of an overview way of this Armenian economy and its situation and where we can go in the future. And I'm not going to repeat any of the things that have been said before. And I agree with Stepan, I agree with Jon, and I agree with Garry. So I want to get to put it in perspective. Let's look at some of the things that we deal with. We have in front of us. What are we dealing with? If we look at the Armenia's economy, it's about 12 billion in total. That's the GDP according to the IMF. The information I have in front of me is from IMF, and we are looking for economic growth. If we are looking for an economic growth, we need a quantum and a paradigm shift the way the economy is being organized and where we are in the economic cycle of Armenia. And to add to it, the recent situation in Armenia has compounded the economic challenges that we have. So the question is, how you build a relevant, sustainable economy and economic growth, which it's a vibrant business environment with good opportunities for jobs in the economy, and create the opportunities which attracts investments in a secure environment where investors see it as secure for their investments when they come and invest in Armenia as a foreign investment destination. So by saying this, where can we take the Armenian economy and how can we overcome some of those issues? Where we start from? So we need the paradigm shift as been discussed before, but it cannot only be diaspora-centric. Diaspora is going to play a major role, and all the things that is being said here by Stepan, it's very relevant as far as diaspora is concerned. But it cannot be diaspora-centric alone. It has to attract foreign capital, foreign involvement, foreign technologies coming from other places globally. So there are a lot of models that Armenia can learn from, and most of those being tried and experienced in other countries. So to put it in a comparison where we are in the geopolitical neighborhood where we are, let's have a look at where we are. Geopolitically, we are in the middle of Caucasus, or in the South Caucasus specifically. We have Turkey, which is the 20th largest economy in the world. At the moment, it has a lot of economic problems. Their GDP is around 794 billion. You got Iran from the other side, where their economy is about 683 billion. Azerbaijan, with their petro economy, they're about 50 billion, and Georgia is about 16 billion. So these are where we are. This is a geographic area, the neighborhood that we live in. So my view is that our current involvement in the economy, as far as I can see, I'm not an economist, but observing from the distance and visiting Armenia often enough, it's a sporadic involvement from diaspora. It has some elements of local businesses, but it's not enough to get the quantum leap that we're looking for. So my recommendation, the challenges is that the Armenian government and the diaspora together, whoever it is that is going to be the think tank of the economic growth, we need to decide what are the economic pillars for Armenia. What are they? So I've sat down and thought about this, and I said, from where I can see it, and from my visits in Armenia, I can divide it into 4 pillars that I can see. So the number 1 pillar is the tourism and culture. If we look at that area, it's got vast potential. It needs, it's probably the most vibrant in the economy, I would imagine, and it has a lot of potential. So one of the pillars that I can see that is relevant to the economic growth, it definitely has to be the tourism and the culture. The second area that I've sort of selected is the technology area. The technology, there are some, how do you say it, green shoots being formed in the sector. But it's not big enough because you're competing against many other countries doing the same thing. So we need to have a paradigm shift, the way we deliver our technology and how we play in a way to be a boutique supplier of the technology, if you like, selecting where we are going to make a difference in that. So I can see the technology as another pillar. The third one, which to me it's the most important, it's the defense and military part of the economy. And whether we like it or not, Armenia has to spend. If we like to live in Armenia, if we like to secure our borders and to secure the state for it to be able to attract the investment. So the defense area is very, very important. Defense technology and defense industries are very, very important. And I can see that there is a tie between the technology, the number 2 and the number 3 defense industry. The fourth area that I can select for the fourth pillar, I can say it can be the mining resources, which I understand there are some specific opportunities in the mining area, but again, it's very sporadic and not well organized. So these are the 4 pillars. So the questions that arise into my mind, where are these resources that we can apply in these 4 pillars, and how we can strengthen these areas that becomes the fundamentals of our economy, the Armenian economy. The government has to play a role in this because without the government's infrastructure, providing the infrastructure necessary for it, facilitates the investment, support, all kinds of economic input from the government into this has to be one of the most important elements of growing the economy itself. If we like to have a look at some models, I mean, you can have a look at the closest one that I know of, and economies that have been able to go in a similar voyage in their economic growth. The first thing comes into mind is Singapore, and it was a very single-minded way of getting their economy going, and they had the opportunity of having an excellent leader like Lee Kuan Yew, and the way he established the economic forces, and one of the priorities that he implemented was the security of Singapore. That's a model that you can say that you cannot just follow it 100%, but it has an opportunity that we can look at what are the drivers and the programs that were made during the development journey. So by saying that, to me, the most important is to look at the resources available right now and to develop those pillars of the economy for us to be able to go forward with it.
Excuse me. Thank you very much.
Some water.
Yeah. would you like to continue and add to your points?
No, I'm just going to say that that the most important thing to have that mindset, which was mentioned before, the mindset that we need to have our security first, in my opinion, because without security, nobody is going to bring any money to Armenia. Security is going to be number one, and it has to be one of the pillars of the economy as well, because to have the security, you have to spend the money in defense. So you have to make a choice what you're going to build or manage in Armenia from that in that defense economy, so you can benefit on both sides at the same time that you're spending the money you're spending in the country and you're developing your technologies and industries. Of course, you cannot do everything by yourself. You have to tie yourself with companies and countries, and the selection of those is going to be very important when you developing your military industrial complex. I'll stop here.
Thank you. And I would like to let's keep it more, casual. Just if anybody wants to say something, if there is nothing that you want to say, I'll just ask a few questions, but it's more preferable if you just go back and forth with each other points and just have the discussion. Anybody? Yeah, John, go ahead.
Look, I think one of the key things I think is we should never underestimate the power of the business sector. We should not rely on government to implement the changes that we need. We need government to set policy. And I think it's important that this does not get political, with regards to the Future Armenian Initiative. What we should be looking for, I think, and I think this is what everyone else has been saying, and certainly one of the bits of feedback we've already had in the chat room, is the government in Armenia does not have the experience that people have outside of Armenia from an entrepreneurial standpoint, in terms of getting things done. From the Soviet days, you were just told what to do. There have been a lot of economic problems that have faced Armenia. There's security problems that have faced Armenia. What I'm hoping the Future Armenian Initiative will create some kind of framework that makes it easier for outside people from outside of Armenia, non-Armenians like myself, the Armenian diaspora, the expertise that Armenians have in the business sector. It's what Armenians are known for outside of Armenia. They're known for being really great business people. And so I think we need to try and find a framework where business people can bring business skills into Armenia. We need to find ways where the business knowledge of the diaspora is transferred so that younger Armenians are trained better, so they know what better standards look like. They know what what is possible, because I think if you look at it just through the lens of Armenia, if you've only lived in Armenia and that's all you don't know what's possible because of all the issues that have gone on. And I think it's really important that all of us look at what we can do to help this initiative to bring about the kind of change that we want for Armenia. We want Armenia to be strong, secure, successful. And so we need to find a way through initiatives like this that are not political to help the ordinary Armenian to have a far better quality of life, especially young people. If we can train young people better so they have, give them hope. And so they stay in Armenia, they don't leave, they stay there and they make their life successful in Armenia. That's my dream for Armenia.
Yeah.
I think, John, you said it very well, and I agree with you. We cannot totally rely on government. But as you said, government has to provide the means for foreign investment to come in a way that is acceptable globally, because diaspora is very important, and you are right. We have not even tried the first things, how diaspora will be able to do those things and invest in Armenia, let alone trying to attract other foreign investment in Armenia. So the government involvement is going to be important. I agree with you, we should not make this political. It should be based on what's good for the country. It has to be done on the basis of what's available right now and what can be added to it, and what are the major shifts. What are the things that we need to do to shift the needle? We cannot rely small steps and incremental. It's not going to move the economy from 12 billion to 50 billion on incremental issues, on involvement from with bits and pieces. It has to be done on a wider scale with the elements that I've mentioned, that has those pillars of the economy that it's decided and implemented gradually.
Thank you. So just since we have about 20 minutes left of this discussion, we'd just like to make it as, we want to come up to something, and I guess it's better at this stage to pick one of the things that have been discussed during this discussion so far and just get into more details about it and how we can achieve it. And afterwards, since this is a series of discussion, we'll have other discussions where we will be able to go more into the details and discuss more topics. So first, I would like Baron Kerkyasharian. Yeah, go ahead. If you would like to say something, then I'll continue.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that some work needs to be done in the diaspora, as I mentioned last time we met. Although not immediate, but it's something that we should have on our radar. At some stage, we must think about getting diasporan Armenian big business and business leaders and try and set up an independent sovereign fund which sits outside Armenia, but which is about developing Armenia.
Yeah, that's. I would like to know the opinion of the other panelists on this, since through what Baron Kerkyasharian is saying, a lot of the things can be achieved if we have the sovereign fund and we could focus the efforts on different things. So I would like to know what Garry thinks about this and his opinion.
Yeah, well, we need the funds. I mean, I agree with Greg and Jon earlier today. We're talking about governments, but as I believe what Ruben said in the last things, that the framework that he needs to build or the platform to bring communities, investors, governments, private equities, super funds to work all together, because that's why the sovereign funds will come in. So exactly that's what we're trying to do, all of us. But the sovereign fund is not going to come and tell you, hey, this is billion. You got to give them the carrot. And the carrot is we have to give them something different. They're not going to go, because you're an Armenian, okay, I can raise 10 million, but that's not a big deal in today's world. So 100% we need a sovereign fund, and I think will be an ideal that sovereign fund to be sitting somewhere outside Armenia at the moment, and because unfortunately the confidence, that's another thing, that will be related to the government. It's all about confidence. Confidence is center point in everything. At the moment, the confidence, what happened pre the war with the money raised, we're still waiting for some details. I know it's not political, but it's all working together. We need to know where the money's going. Once we know that will bring a lot of confidence as well in us. As I said, I'm one of the guys that I'm going with me and my family and my brother and his family and mom and dad. We are moving to Armenia because the only way to grow any economy, it's population growth. That's what kept USA, Australia in a great position, population growth. And when you have that population growth, as I said, you'll have housing, and that's how the economy is going to grow. So to have that sovereign fund, it's great, but how we can, you're going to give them that carrot that to attract them to us. And one of them, I think we can't, as I said, we call them the toxic trio that we are neighboring, from Iran to Turkey to Georgia and even Azerbaijan. We can't do any business with them. we have to attract businesses that can come to us, and the only way is technology and renewable to be able, because that's something that you don't have to put it in the ship and bring it to Armenia. That comes up with it. So we need to have the technology has to be the key driver for anything for Armenia. And with that, of course, you'll get when you have the technology, you have the jobs, you're going to bring people coming to Armenia. So we're going to have more inbound than outbound, because we're going to create jobs. And with that comes housing and the rest. And then with that comes up, the rest of the things that we discuss, the private equity, super funds. At the moment, which super fund is going to come and invest in Armenia? And we're having people leaving Armenia, what we're hearing. So we need to bring, I'm very optimistic about Armenia, but it's just we need to create that platform that Future Armenia is doing it, which is great, to bring all of them together, because governments, we love them, they're public servants, they need to hear from us. And look, even let's take Australia. We got a prime minister. We have a great advisors that are advisor. So we need good advisors to our ministerial people and tell them what we want, exactly what we want. And we set up the funds and we invest in that. So that's my opinion about the super funds or the investment fund or the sovereign fund that we need to create.
Just a quick follow-up on that, if I may. When the sovereign fund that I'm envisaging, of course, it's not going to be overnight. It's after we've gathered some steam in Armenia. But we mustn't rule out that sovereign fund can operate internationally. Its client group can also include the diaspora. It can get involved in building schools, hospitals, infrastructures, all sorts of things, and investment can also be brought in from non-Armenians. That's I'm thinking globally now, yes, because I think that's how Armenia should think. Armenia should think of itself as a global entity and a global power.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the economic growth cannot be just in terms of its current situation. Obviously, it has to be a global. It has to be. However, I still think that I'm for the idea of the sovereign fund and its implementation. Obviously, it's a big job to put it together, and it has to start from somewhere. I also think that parallel to that, security issue is going to be the most important. I think without security, without being able to secure what you have and secure your future, it's going to be very difficult to excite people to be able to invest in Armenia and to even migrate to Armenia. So security issue is going to be the primary objective in whatever we decide to do with the economy, has to be tied to the security.
Yeah. And with the security, we have to get the technology. Once we have the right technology, and that can help us a lot with the security.
Absolutely. But technology is an enabler of security. It's not the only thing. It's not the only thing. Security is part of it for sure. Security has many facets to it, many aspects to it. So it's an area of study in itself.
Thank you. And also, I would like to speak a bit more on what Jon was saying in the beginning about because we are speaking about security, and one of the points that Jon made in the beginning, that security also means security from energy, having your own energy source, being able to supply and create your own energy for your usage. I was wondering if Jon could tell us, how is this possible to achieve? Okay, we all agree, I guess, that it's good for Armenia to have its own energy sources. And how can we achieve this, Jon, if you can elaborate on this?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, basically at the moment, we have a situation in Armenia where, you've got a range of different power sources. So you've got the atomic energy, you've got thermal energy, you've got hydropower energy, you've got solar and wind. the concern with the atomic facility, the nuclear facility in Armenia, is it's very old. Nuclear is not the safest option, and also not necessarily the cheapest, although once it's been running a long time, of course, the costs can come down. But you just need to look at overseas and look at how incredibly cheap solar energy has become. If you look at how cheap wind power has become, especially offshore wind, I know that's not something that can be done in Armenia, but the scale of wind turbines has jumped in size dramatically. Also, in terms of battery power, we just had today announced in Australia a massive new battery, like a solar battery, basically, that will take the excess solar and store it. And it's a battery that will be funded by private money, doesn't need any government subsidy. The cost has now come down to the point that it actually makes sense for private investors to put the money up. And I think one of my colleagues raised earlier that one of the most important things we need in Armenia is security, so that people know that if they're going to invest in Armenia in something like renewables, that there will be that return on investment. And the good thing is, when it comes to certain things, energy, these are things everybody needs in Armenia. And I think what we need to do is the government needs to make sure that we decentralize the energy creation as much as possible. What do I mean by that? It's about spreading it out, so that from a defense point of view, if Armenia was to be attacked, having energy spread out throughout the country, so that each community has its own battery backup or has its own pumped hydro storage energy backup. I think it's really critical that all towns around Armenia have renewables, or go 100% renewable, have their own independent backup. So in the event that there is another conflict, the one thing people can guarantee is you're not reliant on any gas coming from another country. You electrify everything. We're seeing all the world's biggest companies, hundreds of them, are going 100% renewable with all their electricity use. And these are the biggest and best known companies in the world. Why are they doing it? Because it makes financial sense. It also makes environmental sense. There's no reason why Armenia cannot take a leading role as a small country on going renewable, because if Armenia can do it, someone mentioned having a fund. We should have an energy fund. The Armenia, Garry Simonian and I have been calling it Armenia 100. How do we get Armenia to be 100% powered by renewable energy in a way that is good for the business sector in Armenia to have cheap energy so they can compete? It's really important to have it from an energy security point of view. And environmentally, there's no reason why Armenia cannot lead the world, but it needs funding for that. The government needs to ensure that you have far bigger solar farms and bigger wind farms than you currently have over there. You've got such great potential, and you've got hydropower, of course, as well. So hopefully, there's a lot of experts like me out there who want to help, and we need to ensure that where there are businesses and individuals who want to help, I'm hoping that the Future Armenian Initiative will help to facilitate that, so that people who do want to help can come in and lend their support.
Can you give any estimates of what's the amount of resources that would need, including financial, to make Armenia 100% renewable? Is there any estimates that you can give?
Well, look, I think the key thing is there needs to be a plan. So at the moment, Armenia is using about 2,700 megawatts of power. So it's not like a huge amount of power. There's if you look at the RE100 initiative that I'm involved with in Australia, our members use more power than Armenia does, and we're just Australia. We're a small country, so it's not a huge amount of energy that needs to be turned into renewable. What I think we need to do is, one thing I would love to do once we are able to travel again, is hold an event in Armenia where we invite the world's leading renewables companies and invite them and say, okay, what do we need to do to get Armenia to go 100% renewable? How much would it cost? Who's prepared to come to the table? Get the funding entities from the European Union and Asia and America. If you look at the diaspora, how do we set up a fund that we can make this happen, where there's a guaranteed return on investment? But as someone else said, you need to have security in place to make sure that there's no one does anything stupid to make, to negate that investment. Because if you're going to invest in renewables, the cost of that has come down very dramatically and will only keep coming down. And so there's no reason economically, it makes sense for Armenia to go 100% renewable. And it also can go beyond that, because how can we make things in Armenia that you use that renewable energy and then you sell it into a global market and people know that that has come from a clean, green country? So I think there's lots of opportunities with food exports. The mushrooms in Armenia taste better than anywhere else in the world. We should be looking at new ways of using that renewable energy to drive new industries that can export. So we're not, so Armenia creates jobs for young people. And as I said, the final point, education is critical. One of the most inspiring thing I've done in my life is work with Ara Tadavosian and Far on building that school in Gyumri. And getting all the people who helped to fund that. It makes a real difference. Education is critical. If we can get people when they're young, we educate them properly as to what the potential is. That's where business people overseas, educators overseas can bring their experience, bring their, go back to Armenia and actually help bring education alive. If you look at Dilijan with what Ruben Vardanyan's done, the Dilijan school is just unbelievable. It's up there with one of the best schools in the world. If you look at the arts center, I'm trying to think of the name of it in Yerevan, it's one of the best art schools in the world. Armenia can do this stuff, and when it does it well, it does it really well. And I think we need to see more of that.
Great, that's great. I know you have plans with Garo to come to Armenia as soon as the borders are open. So looking forward for you two to come here and discuss this, and make it into a plan. So we have a few minutes left. Anybody who would like to say any remarks, any ideas? That I know the time was very limited, but as we've agreed, we are going to keep this discussion going. And in the end, we've just got a few minutes. Who would like to say anything that it's in the mind and wanted to share with us? Anybody?
Yeah, I wanted to say, just to say what Jon was saying about the, getting the environmental aspect. As we know, the world is swinging to renewable. At least that can put Armenia on the map in that aspect, being, if we can build that 15-minute cities that we're discussing that can bring communities together and starting to use batteries and what we're doing in our project in Sydney. And again, I can't stress enough that if Future Armenia can establish the framework that can bring industries, investors, private equities to assist government where it's possible to retool, rebuild, reskill, to just set up for future generation. Because as I said, we are the last generation here that we will be able, if we're going to do anything, we should do it now. Otherwise, we will not be able to do anything, because we live in a very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, and it's getting even harder. So if you're going to do anything, we got to do it now. I agree with Stepan about the funding, but how are we going to set it up? If you guys can do it, unfortunately, with the travel restrictions, that really gave us a hard time. Otherwise, I would have been about 4 times in Armenia and would have been able to establish this. And we're doing our parts in Sydney from, to keep Armenia strong, from ANC to AGBU to Home Enactment to the Home. They're doing all our part to keep Armenia, but that's won't last for another 20 years. Believe me, sir. So we need to work hard for our Armenia, and we got to do it right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to conclude, just what is one of the major takeaways for the audience today is that there are people, Armenians, not Armenians, in Australia that have been thinking of Armenia even before this initiative was launched with the Armenian Business Development Association and with other initiatives as such, that there are people who are working for Armenia, who are thinking of Armenia, and the people are willing to take some of their valuable time on thinking about Armenia and participating in the discussions, giving their ideas. There is so much more to this, to what our Armenian Australian community and just Australian community can do for Armenia. This is just the first step with the Future Armenian team, and this will be a continuous discussions that we are going to have. And with that said, one thing that I would like to say at the end, that we've got a few questions from the participants, and I would ask the participants who asked the questions to forward them to the Future Armenian team, and they'll send it to us, and the panelists can answer to your questions. And with that said, thank you to all the panelists, to the participants, to the Future Armenian team who made this event happen. Special thanks to Talar and Aslik, who've been very helpful and in making this Zoom meeting and discussion happen. Thank you all, and we'll be in touch. Take care and see you soon. Bye-bye.